If you put her in that car, you may lose her before you reach the hospital. The words left my mouth before I remembered who I was talking to. Damian Romano turned toward me, and every conversation in Hawthorne's private dining room died at once. His sister was on the floor between us. Victoria Romano had dropped her wineglass seconds earlier. Now her right hand lay useless beside her, one side of her mouth pulling downward as she struggled to speak. Damian, it came out. Broken. Thick. Wrong. I looked at the clock. 7:43 p.m. Face drooping. Arm. Weakness. Slurred speech. My nursing instructors had drilled those signs into me until I could recognize them half asleep. Stroke. 2 men were already lifting Victoria. Stop. One stared at my waitress uniform. Excuse me. Put her down carefully. Call 911. Damian stepped closer. Black suit. Dark eyes. A thin scar near his jaw. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. My physician is waiting. Does your physician have a stroke team and brain imaging in his car? Silence. My manager looked like he wanted the marble floor to swallow me. Damian's gaze hardened. Who are you? My heart was pounding so violently I could feel it in my throat. I touched the old watch on my left wrist. My mother's. The person telling you not to waste her time. One of his men moved toward me. Damian lifted one finger. The man stopped. Explain. She's showing classic stroke signs. She needs EMS and a stroke-capable hospital. Every minute matters. Tell the dispatcher the symptoms started. At 7:43, Damian looked at Victoria. For the first time, I saw something beneath all that control. Fear. Call 911, he said. The room moved again. I knelt beside Victoria, keeping her safe and watching her breathing. Don't give her food, water, or medication, I warned. When someone reached for her glass, Victoria's eyes found mine. Terrified, conscious, trapped inside a body suddenly refusing her commands. Help is coming, I whispered. The sirens arrived fast. Paramedics flooded the room, and I gave them everything I knew. Symptoms. Onset time. What I had witnessed. As they transferred Victoria to the stretcher, her purse shifted. A plastic pill organizer struck the floor and opened. Tablets scattered across the marble. Something else slid beneath the table. Brass. I picked it up automatically. A small safe deposit key. This fell from her purse, I said, but Victoria suddenly caught my wrist. Her grip was weak. Her eyes weren't. Don't. I leaned closer. Don't what? Her gaze moved beyond my shoulder. Damian stood there. So did several of his men. Grant Mercer was among them, silent at Damian's right hand. Trust, Victoria whispered. Who? Her. Lips moved. No sound came. Then the paramedics wheeled her away. Damian followed without looking back. Grant did. His eyes dropped to my hand, to the brass key, then returned to my face. I waited until everyone was gone before looking down. 2 characters had been engraved into the metal, V19, and somehow, the way Grant had looked at it frightened me, more than Victoria's unfinished warning. What do you want? Damian. Romano asked me outside the stroke unit at 2 in the morning, as if what had happened at Hawthorne had created a debt he could settle before sunrise. I looked through the glass doors behind him. Victoria was alive. That was enough. Nothing. His eyes narrowed. Everyone wants something. Then tonight you met someone disappointing. He didn't smile. Neither did I. A neurologist had already explained that knowing the symptoms began at 7:43 had helped the stroke team evaluate Victoria. Without wasting critical time, I hadn't saved her with some miracle. I had recognized what was happening and refused to let powerful men delay the people who could actually treat her. Damian seemed determined to make that worth a price. Your debt, he said. I can clear it. I stared at him. What debt? His gaze dropped to the nursing school pin, still attached beneath my Hawthorne badge. You graduated with a BSN 11 months ago. You haven't taken the NCLEX. You work here, and another job. Cold moved through me. You investigated me? I needed to know who was beside my sister tonight. That took you less than 6 hours. Basic records took less than 1. I should have been frightened. Instead, I was angry. My mother died before I could take the exam. Grief didn't pause rent. Neither did her medical bills. Some Months I choose between an overdue notice and having enough time to study. I can make them disappear. No, he studied me as if that word still surprised him. An apartment, then. A hospital position when you're licensed. No, Rachel, your sister needed help. Don't turn that into something you own. Something shifted in his face. Small. Almost invisible. Before he could answer, Grant Mercer approached. We have a problem. Damien's attention changed instantly. Colder. Sharper. Caruso contacted 2 of our captains. When? Around 3 hours before Victoria collapsed. Damien went still. Did they accept? They say no. People say many things when they're afraid. Grant lowered his voice. Do you want me to respond? Damien looked through the glass at his sister. No, Grant seemed surprised. Boss, if Nicholas Caruso knew something was coming tonight, I want to know how. That sentence followed me home. So did Victoria's unfinished warning. Don't trust. I placed the brass key on my kitchen table beneath the yellow light. V19. I had planned to return it to Victoria in the morning. My phone vibrated. Unknown number. You picked up something that isn't yours. My stomach tightened. A second message appeared. Give it back before Romano sees it. I stared at the screen. Whoever sent it knew about the key. Worse, they knew Damien didn't. 3 slow knocks sounded. At my apartment door. I froze. Miss Bennett. A man called from the hallway. Mr. Romano sent us. I backed away and called the number Damien had given me. He answered on the first ring. Rachel. I whispered. Did you send men to my apartment? Silence lasted half a second. Then his voice turned to ice. I sent no one. Do not open that door. Damien's voice was so calm that it made the shadows beneath my apartment door feel more dangerous. Another knock came. 3 measured taps. Miss Bennett, we're here to take you somewhere safe. I stepped backward, gripping my phone. They know my name. They know. More than that if they found your address this quickly. I heard Damien speaking to someone away from the phone. Pull her building cameras. Street feeds. Plates from every vehicle that entered the block in the last 30 minutes. I want to know who accessed her information. No panic. No threats. Just orders. A shadow crossed beneath my door. Then, another. Rachel, Damien said. Stay away from the windows. What are you doing? Finding out who they are. A minute later, footsteps moved. Down the hallway. A car engine started outside. By the time a patrol car reached my building, the men were gone. Damien called again. Pack. Enough for 2 nights. My spine stiffened. That sounds like an order. Silence. Then, there's a Romano-owned hotel 6 blocks from the hospital. You can stay there while I identify who came tonight. And if I refuse, I'll dislike your decision. Despite myself, I almost laughed. But it remains your decision. That was why I agreed. Not because Damien Romano frightened me. Because for the first time, he had power over a situation and chose not to use it over me. The next morning, I returned to Victoria's room. Her color was better, but her speech remained slow. I closed the door and placed the brass key in her palm. V19. Fear sharpened her eyes immediately. Where did you get this? Your pill organizer. At Hawthorne. Her fingers closed around it. Who knows? I do. I hesitated. And whoever sent men to my apartment. Damien. Not yet. Relief crossed her face. That hurt more than I expected. Victoria, what does it open? She watched the hallway. Before answering. Safe deposit box. Backup records. Records of what? Money. She swallowed carefully. Millions missing from our legitimate companies. Vendors that don't exist. Payments moving through shell corporations. Why not tell your brother? Because whoever did it had access to systems only a few people can reach. My skin prickled. You think Damien is involved? No. Her answer came instantly. Then, quieter, I think someone close enough to him is. She explained that V19 was the code name for her internal investigation. The key opened. Only the backup evidence. Original records still existed on a secured company server. No single key could destroy the truth. Then why does someone want this so badly? Because they don't know what I copied. Footsteps approached. Victoria stopped speaking. Grant Mercer appeared. Beyond the glass. He opened the door with a polite smile. How are we Feeling tired, Victoria said. I stood. The brass key was still between my fingers. Grant's eyes dropped to it. Just once. But I saw it. That evening, Damien sent me a photograph. Me leaving Victoria's room. V19 visible in my hand. Beneath it was a message someone had sent. Directly to him. Ask your waitress what my sister is hiding from me. My phone rang immediately. Damien. Rachel. His voice was controlled. Too. Controlled. Tell me why someone thinks you know my sister's secrets. Tell me what V19 opens. Damien stood across from me in a private hospital conference room, his phone resting on the table between us. My photograph filled the screen. Someone had been close enough to capture the brass key in my hand without either of us noticing. I can't. His expression remained still. Can't. Victoria trusted me with something. Someone came to your apartment because of that something. I know. Someone photographed you inside a hospital where my security controls the floor. His voice lowered. And now they're using you to provoke me. Then find them. I held his gaze. Don't turn me into one of your suspects. Silence stretched between us. Damien could have threatened me. He could have demanded the key. Instead, he picked up his phone. Fine. I blinked. Fine. You keep Victoria's confidence. I find the person trying to weaponize it. That was the first moment I understood why men followed him. He didn't need to win every argument. He needed to win the right ones. By afternoon, another problem arrived. Eric Dalton, one of Damien's captains, had disappeared. So had $480,000 from an account Victoria had flagged. During her audit, Dalton surfaced 24 hours later in Jersey City. Grant brought the report personally. He says Rachel contacted him. My stomach dropped. Damien's eyes moved to me. Grant placed a phone on the table. Messages appeared under my name. Instructions about V19. An account number. A meeting location. I never sent those. Grant folded his arms. The phone says otherwise. Phones don't testify. Damien said. Records do. He ordered the original carrier logs. Authentication history and timestamps pulled. Hours passed. I expected suspicion. Instead, Damien worked quietly, methodically. Near midnight, he entered the room carrying 2 coffees. He placed one in front of me. 1 sugar. No cream. Is this an apology? I asked. No, I raised an eyebrow. He sat opposite me. It's the beginning of one. Something warm moved through my chest before I could stop it. Then he slid a printed report across the table. The messages weren't yours. You know that. The account was cloned. Several timestamps don't match the carrier records. Relief hit first, then fear. Someone manufactured evidence against me. Yes. Why? Damien took a slow drink. To make me distrust you. I looked toward Victoria's room beyond the glass. Because she trusts me. And because whoever did this believes that matters to me now. Our eyes met. Neither of us touched that sentence. Brief relief. Then Damien turned another page. There's something else. The fake messages had passed through a device authenticated on Hawthorne's internal guest network. I frowned. When his jaw tightened. The night Victoria collapsed. The coffee suddenly tasted bitter. Whoever framed me hadn't entered the story after I found V19. They had already been there. Watching Victoria. Watching Damien. Maybe. Watching me. Dalton later admitted he had accepted money to route payments and leak schedules through a Caruso intermediary, believing it was ordinary corruption rather than a coup. His cooperation identified the intermediary, whose accounts linked directly to vendor companies. Victoria had already flagged. Dalton had been guilty, but he had also been designed to become the first fall guy if the network was exposed. I whispered. So Caruso had someone inside the restaurant. Damien stood. Maybe. You don't believe it was Caruso? He buttoned his jacket. I believe someone wants me looking at Caruso. He stared at the network. Record again. Which means tomorrow, we stop looking where they're pointing. And for the first time, I realized the person hunting us might not be outside Damien's family at all. Someone touched Victoria's medication before she ever lifted that wine glass. Damien said it without raising his voice, but the sentence changed everything. We were back at Hawthorne before opening, standing in the same private dining room where Victoria had collapsed. The broken crystal was gone. The white tablecloth had been replaced. Only I could still see her on the floor. Damien had preserved the restaurant's raw security footage before the system could overwrite it. We watched the hours before dinner from 4 different cameras. Again, slower. Then I saw something. Stop. Damien froze the frame. A coat check employee was carrying Victoria's pill organizer through the service corridor. Why does she have that? I asked. We found her downstairs preparing for the evening shift. She remembered immediately. Ms. Romano left her medication in her coat, she said. One of Mr. Romano's people asked me to bring it. Which person? Damien asked. Her face tightened. I don't know his name. We returned to the footage. 25 minutes before Victoria collapsed, the employee handed the organizer to a man wearing a dark suit. His face remained outside the camera angle. He held it for less than 2 minutes before returning it. Zoom in, I whispered. The image blurred as Damien enlarged it. We couldn't see his face, but when his hand crossed beneath a ceiling light, something flashed at his wrist. Black enamel, silver edges, a lion's head. Damien went completely still. His phone rang before either of us spoke. The neurologist, Victoria, had remembered something. Her blood pressure tablets had looked different for several days before the dinner. Pharmacy records showed no authorized prescription or manufacturer change. The remaining pills from Hawthorne had been examined. Several were a lower strength than the dose she had been prescribed. I had not diagnosed the cause of Victoria's stroke. I had noticed a discrepancy, raised it, and let the physician and pharmacy records verify what it meant. The footage did not prove that pills had first been switched 25 minutes before dinner. It proved someone inside Damien's circle had access to the organizer. The pattern suggested interference over days, not a perfectly timed last-minute substitution. Can that cause a stroke? Damien asked. The doctor's answer was careful. I can't say it caused hers, but inadequate blood pressure control can increase stroke risk, especially in someone with existing hypertension. Damien ended the call. I watched his face, empty of emotion. That frightened me more than anger would have. Someone wanted her sick, I said, or unstable enough that she couldn't finish what she started. V19. The audit. The missing money. Suddenly, the dinner wasn't the beginning. It was only where the hidden attack became visible. Later, I found Damien alone beside Victoria's hospital window. He removed the steel watch he always wore and turned it once in his hand. My father gave me this. You never take it off. He was wearing it the night someone inside our organization betrayed him. I looked at him. That's why you control everything. Control kept me alive. Maybe. I touched my mother's watch, but expecting betrayal from everyone keeps everyone outside. His eyes settled on me. Not everyone. Neither of us moved. For one dangerous second, the war outside that room disappeared. Then I remembered the footage. The black lion. I had seen it everywhere near Damien's inner circle. Grant wore it. Anthony Cole wore it. The Romano chief financial officer and 2 senior captains had worn the same insignia at Hawthorne. My pulse jumped, not because I knew who had touched the medication, but because I finally knew how close the person had been to Damien. I grabbed my phone to call him. Before I could touch his name, it rang. Grant Mercer. Seeing his name made my stomach tighten, but a cufflink was not proof. Not yet. Don't answer him. Damien's voice came through my second call before Grant stopped ringing. I stared at the screen. How did you know? Because Grant called me first. A beat. He asked where you were. My stomach tightened. I told Damien about the black lion. Cufflinks. He listened without interrupting. No anger. No accusation. When I finished, he said, come downstairs. 20 minutes later, I sat across from him in a private hotel office. You believe me? I believe. You saw what you saw. That isn't the same thing. No, it isn't. He leaned back. Grant has served my family for 22 years. Hey, cufflink makes him suspicious. It doesn't make him guilty. That was Damien. Even with his sister recovering from a stroke, he refused to let emotion become evidence. So what happens? We give the traitor something worth stealing. By morning, Damien had built the trap. 3 people received 3 different versions of the same secret. The Romano CFO was told the V-19 backup had been moved to a private bank. Captain Anthony Cole heard it was hidden inside Victoria's apartment. Grant was told only one thing. Dock 12. Then we waited. 6 hours later, Damien's security chief entered. 2 Caruso surveillance vehicles at Dock 12. They arrived separately. I looked at Damien. His expression barely changed, but his thumb stopped against the steel watch on his wrist. Grant had been beside his family for decades. Betrayal still hurt, even when a mafia boss knew better than to show it. Bring him in, the security chief asked. No, I turned. You're letting him walk? Damien's eyes stayed on the report. Grant thinks I don't know. And that matters more than stopping him. Stopping one man isn't enough. His voice lowered. I want everyone he bought. Damien ordered. Surveillance, not confrontation. Grant's calls led to an accounting intermediary. The intermediary led to a Caruso-controlled shell company. Then 2 Romano captains appeared in the communication chain. By evening, Victoria gave us the missing piece. The money wasn't stolen. She said slowly from her hospital bed. It was redistributed. Damien understood before I did. A coup fund. Victoria nodded. Grant had spent 18 months moving Romano money through fake vendors, then using it to create debts and secret loyalties inside the organization. I was going to show you at Hawthorne, she whispered. That's why I had V-19. Damien took her hand. Why didn't you tell me earlier? Because I didn't know who was his. The answer wounded him. I saw it. Then his phone began vibrating. One warehouse contract canceled. Then another. A Romano transport partner withdrew. 2 captains declared neutrality. Within 11 minutes of each other. Damien stood. He knows about the trap. I asked. Yes. Grant had realized he was exposed, so he had accelerated the coup. Damien's private line rang. He answered on speaker. Grant's voice came through calmly. You always were clever. Damien. Damien said nothing. Caruso never had enough power to take your family from you. A pause. That's why I built him a door. The call ended. Damien looked at the map of his organization. Red lights were appearing across it. Then he buttoned his jacket. Now, he said softly, I close it. If Grant wants a war, don't give him one. I said it before I realized how ridiculous it sounded coming from a waitress to a mafia boss. Damien looked up from the map covering his desk. Red marks showed compromised contracts. Black marks showed Romano. Assets still under his control. I wasn't planning to. That frightened me more than if he had reached for a gun. Grant expected rage. Damien gave him mathematics. By noon, he had frozen accounts connected to the coup fund, purchased the outstanding debt of a Caruso-linked transport company, and quietly warned 3 legitimate shipping partners that Caruso shell companies were exposing them to financial risk. Then he planted a lie. One of Nicholas Caruso's lieutenants was supposedly negotiating with Romano. He'll know it's false, I said. Eventually, Damien adjusted his cuff. Suspicion only needs an hour to become expensive. His phone rang twice before he finished speaking. Caruso had canceled 2 internal meetings. The lie was working. You should leave Manhattan, Damien told me. No, Rachel. I have an appointment tomorrow to restart my nursing licensure process. Victoria is still recovering. I'm not abandoning my life because Grant decided I'm useful. His jaw tightened. I expected an order. Instead, he nodded. Once. Then stay. That mattered more than I wanted it to. At 4:17, my phone vibrated. The notification came through the hospital's authenticated family contact portal. Victoria Romano, acute neurological change. Report to transfer corridor B. It included Victoria's patient ID, her room number. Everything looked real. I called the rehabilitation desk while hurrying downstairs. Busy. I tried again. Nothing. By the time I reached transfer corridor B, the silence felt wrong. No nurses. No transport team. I checked the message again. The physician name meant nothing to me. I searched the hospital directory. No result. My blood went cold. Footsteps sounded behind me. 2 men appeared. I ran. I made it 6 steps. When I woke, my wrists were bound. In front of me, and Grant Mercer sat across a warehouse office. Where's the V-19 key? Safe. That wasn't my question. It's the answer. you're getting. He smiled. Damien has made you brave. No, I was brave before him. His smile disappeared. Across the city, Damien later told me his security team found the compromised hospital login within minutes. The administrator account that sent the message had received payments from one of the shell companies exposed in Victoria's audit. Grant had left a trail because the coup was moving too fast. Damien fed him one final lie. The V-19 ledger had already been transferred to federal counsel. Grant panicked. He called Caruso, Damien's people, traced the communication chain to my location. Grant's men heard vehicles outside before I did. He came for you, Grant said. I looked at him. You sound surprised. No, he stood. I was counting on it. Minutes later, Romano men secured the warehouse and found me in a locked office. Grant was already gone. Damien entered after the building had been cleared. His eyes found mine, then the marks around my wrists. His voice dropped. Are you hurt? No. I looked at the abandoned chair across from me. Then I understood what Grant had said. Counting on it. He never needed me long enough to bargain. He only needed Damien's attention somewhere else. Damien's phone rang. He listened for 5 seconds. His face went completely still. What? I asked. He lowered the phone. Someone just entered a physician-authorized transfer order at the hospital. My stomach dropped. For who? He was already turning toward the door. Victoria. Nobody moves Victoria unless they know the phrase. I had insisted on that rule after the men came to my apartment. At the time, it had felt paranoid. Now it saved her. The fake transfer team reached Victoria's room before Damien and I made it back to the hospital. 2 men wore hospital scrubs. Another carried paperwork authorizing an emergency transfer. The documents were convincing. The patient information was correct. Even the physician's signature had been copied. But Victoria remembered what we had agreed on. Verification. Phrase, she asked. The man holding the paperwork hesitated. Wrong. Answer. Victoria pressed the nurse call button. The floor went into lockdown. By the time the fake team reached the stairwell, hospital security had already sealed the exits. They abandoned the transfer and disappeared through a service corridor before they could be identified. Grant had failed twice. The verification step I had insisted on, an extra safeguard coordinated with Victoria and the charge nurse, never a substitute for hospital procedure, had stopped the transfer long enough for staff to verify that no legitimate order existed. Damien did not look relieved. He was trying to take her, he said. Why? Because V-19 is strongest when Victoria can authenticate the audit trail herself. His eyes hardened. Grant needs the evidence weakened and the witness removed from our reach. For what? The answer was V-19. Grant knew Victoria had copied the financial records. He knew neutral captains would turn against him if they saw proof that he had financed a coup with Romano money. He needed the backup destroyed before Damien could use it. So Damien gave him exactly what he wanted. A rumor. Victoria. Romano would personally retrieve the V-19 ledger from the private safe deposit facility at 1 in the morning. Victoria never left the secure medical floor. I wanted to go with Damien. Before he answered, I took V-19 from my pocket. He looked at the brass key, but did not reach for it. I need it, he said. Not an order. Not a demand. I looked at Victoria. She nodded. I placed the key in Damien's palm. Then I trust you with it. His fingers closed around it. I know what that costs. You. Do not waste it. I won't. When he asked me to remain with Victoria while he finished the trap, I stayed because I chose to trust him, not because he had decided for me. Damien later told me what happened inside the vault facility. Grant arrived first. Nicholas Caruso came 8 minutes later with 2 trusted men. They expected negotiation. Damien had prepared an audience. Every neutral Romano captain was connected through encrypted audio. Grant didn't know. Damien pushed exactly where resentment lived. 18 months stealing from the family you claimed to serve. Grant snapped. I built that family. Beside your father. Beside him. Damien's voice stayed calm. Not above him. He promised me a place. You had one. Under you. There. It was the truth. Grant admitted moving the money. Buying captains. opening Romano routes to Caruso in exchange for power after Damien fell. Nicholas tried to silence him. Too late. Damien then released records, showing Caruso had planned to cut Grant out once the takeover succeeded. The alliance broke in the room. Neutral captains heard everything. Grant lost the only thing a coup required: legitimacy. Grant's expression finally broke. He had built his coup on secrecy, purchased loyalty, and the assumption that Damien would react before verifying. Now every neutral captain had heard the confession and seen the authenticated evidence. The trap was over. Damien called me from the facility. "Rachel, I'm here. It's finished." I looked through the glass at Victoria sleeping safely inside her secured room. For the first time since Hawthorne, I believed him. By sunrise, the coup was finished. There was no final attacker and no last-minute miracle. The decisive blow had been the evidence and Grant's own confession before the people, whose loyalty he had tried to buy. The earlier forged transfer attempt had already established how far his network was willing to go, and hospital security preserved that evidence for investigators. Grant's confession had already destroyed his credibility with the neutral captains. His financial records proved he had purchased loyalty with Romano money. The compromised hospital accounts and forged transfer records connected his network to the attempt against Victoria. Nicholas Caruso lost the captains he expected to inherit, the transport partners Damien had pressured, and the access routes Grant had promised him. Damien didn't burn the city down. He did something colder. He closed Romano shipping routes to Caruso-linked companies, exposed vulnerable shell businesses to legitimate partners, and forced Nicholas into a territorial stand-down. Damien remained what he had always been: a mafia boss, powerful, controlled, feared. But something in him had changed. Weeks later, I watched Victoria lift a glass with her right hand during rehabilitation. It trembled. She lifted it anyway. "I should have trusted you sooner," she told Damien. He sat beside her. "I should have made trust easier." I looked away because that sentence felt too private to witness. 3 days later, Damien handed me an envelope. "If there's money in this, I'm throwing it at you." There isn't. Inside were copies of the licensing forms and transcript information I had already begun gathering before Grant abducted me. Nothing paid. Nothing submitted in my name. Just a note in his handwriting. "Your life was never mine to fix. I only saved the papers you thought you had lost." My throat tightened. "You remembered." His dark eyes held mine. "I remember what matters." So I completed the eligibility process myself, studied around double shifts, registered for the NCLEX when I was authorized to test, and passed. After my state license was issued, I applied for nursing positions without Damien making a call. My first RN position was in a stroke and neuro unit. After my first shift, he waited outside. Alone. "Dinner. Is that in order?" "No." A pause. I learned better. I smiled and took his hand. We returned to Hawthorne. Same private room. Same table. Victoria sat across from us, her speech slower but clear, her right hand trembling slightly as she raised her glass. I remembered. The first night. Damien had money, influence, loyal men, and enough power to make a room obey. None of it could recognize his sister's stroke. I could. And somewhere between V19, betrayal, fear, and second chances, he taught me that power did not always have to become a cage. I taught him something too. Damien Romano already knew how to make people stay. What he had never learned was how to leave the door open and trust someone to choose him anyway. That night, I did.